Hello and welcome to Sales Management Mastery Online at salesmanagementmastery.com. And we're here to help you and your sales managers build a team of highly motivated, elite salespeople using easy-to-use, real-world leadership, motivational, and coaching tactics that'll unleash a flood of new sales for your sales organization. So on this episode of Sales Management Mastery, we're going to get into a little bit about what we want to accomplish on this show here, as well as introduce one of our core foundational concepts that absolutely is essential to becoming a top sales manager. So I'd like to remind you that if you'd like to get a jump start on creating your own team of supercharged salespeople using our proven system, you can claim your free test drive of the Sales Management Mastery Academy by going to salestraininggift.com. And on today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we'll be discussing throughout the show. And this is the difference between the unconventional and the conventional sales manager. Conventional sales managers are the ones who are typically the average sales managers. And your sales managers, or if you are a sales manager, you don't want to be average. Chances are you're probably getting beaten by your competition, or maybe sales are down, and you're looking for other ways in which to supercharge your sales reps in order to get the sales results that you're looking for. Or maybe you're a business owner and you're looking for specifically how to supercharge your sales managers so that they learn new concepts so that your sales goes in the right direction. And that's really what we're going to be talking about here. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different individual, easy-to-use, real-world tactics. And there's a lot of management books and management theory books that are out there and courses that you can take to talk about theory. But this show is really all about easy to apply, real-world sort of meaty concepts that you can listen in a very short period of time and then take out and start using on a daily basis in order to move sales in the right direction by motivating, leading, coaching, managing, and hiring brand new salespeople in the certain mold that'll get you the results that you're looking for. So on the subject of conventional sales management, we'll certainly be touching on that quite a bit throughout the show, but conventional sales management is something that we really rail against quite a bit, and that's because the leadership results that get the best results from a sales standpoint are typically unconventional. And I think a lot of the sales trainers and sales management experts out there really do talk about more traditional ways in which to go about leading, motivating, and coaching and hiring. And we take a slightly different tactic. And fortunately, I've had a fair amount of experience, about 20 years of sales and sales management experience, with a consistently very good track record of being able to bring out the best in salespeople and turn them into high-performing, low-maintenance salespeople. And the low-maintenance part of it is probably the best part of it, because when you have high-performance and low maintenance, it's really sales management nirvana, because you as the sales manager or your sales managers can then devote their time to strategies and tactics to make the salespeople even better, thinking about even better ways in which to beat the competition and to drive more and more sales revenues for the company. So that's really what we're going to talk about here in the Sales Management Mastery Show. So our first foundational concept is what we call the trust account. And the trust account is something that's an underlying kind of current or theme, which we'll refer back to many times here, throughout all these episodes. But it's a very important foundational concept, which I'm not sure where it exactly came from. I first heard about it when I was first a sales rep and then becoming a sales manager, and I got some pretty good training when I was first a sales manager. And that first sales manager that I always had, who was sort of my mentor, always talked about getting deposits or placing deposits in the trust account. And the trust account basically is sort of this fictitious account or bank account that you have with your salespeople, and each one of your salespeople sort of has a different balance at any given point in time. And your job as a sales manager, if you really want to lead and motivate them and get them to really tune you in and have you be tuning into the right frequency, so to speak, so that your message resonates with them, you have to establish trust first. And if you haven't established trust, then we're going to teach you a lot of ways here in which to reestablish trust and to get that trust going so that a lot of the other things that we'll talk about throughout the entire show resonate with you and will stick a lot better. So the thing is that you really need to make daily attempts to get your salespeople to trust you, and your sales managers need to start doing this as soon as possible. And the analogy that we say is that it's this sort of bank account that the withdrawals, you're taking withdrawals out of it and you're placing deposits in it, because you're going to be taking withdrawals out of it at a later point in time. But especially in the early stages of the relationship that you have with your salespeople, you want to make sure that you're making hefty deposits at all times. So at every turn, every possible moment, you really need to look for ways to strengthen your sales reps' trust in you. So once the sales manager gets that trust, then they can start optimally leading and motivating them. But really not a second earlier, because without that foundation of trust, you're both probably going to end up being in the cellar and probably going to end up in the bottom of the sales rankings, which is what you don't want. Don't think like this, because if all sales managers led their troops this way, it'd be far more difficult for you to surpass them now as their competition. So when it comes to becoming a sales manager, sometimes it means doing things a little bit differently and doing things in a very unconventional way, in a very unconventional manner. So doing things unconventionally means that you're doing things that 99.9% of all average sales managers don't do. But here's the real newsflash for you, is that average sales managers don't bother with trust at all. And that's great for you. They don't worry about establishing any kind of trust. And if you don't establish that level of trust, then your salespeople just tune you out. So to optimally lead your reps and to unleash those explosive kind of sales results that you really are looking for and that your sales managers are looking for, a sales manager needs to be on the same page with their sales reps at all times. And they need to speak their own language. And the only way that they'll listen is if they implicitly trust you. So you can't kind of put the cart before the horse and start leading, motivating, and coaching if they don't believe in what you're saying. And right now I coach my son's baseball as well as his lacrosse team. And they really do. The kids are not altogether different than salespeople in the fact that they don't trust anybody until they realize that first off, you kind of know what you're talking about and that you're going to lead them in the right direction and help them. So that's what you're really trying to do here. So not that a bunch of lacrosse players that are 7 or 8 or 9-year-olds are the same as salespeople, but a lot of times it really is sort of the same thing, because what we're talking about in this whole show is using the basic principles of human psychology in order to get the best out of your salespeople. And when you use those basic principles, it doesn't matter whether they're 40 years old or they're 4 years old. They're all the same. So you motivate and lead and coach people almost the exact same way that you would in any other type of situation. In this way, you're motivating, leading, and coaching sort of a very difficult type of employee, which is the sales rep, which is, they're typically sort of a different breed, as you may have guessed. And if you're listening to this show, maybe you've become a sales manager, or maybe you're a general manager and you have a bunch of sales managers that report to you, and you've noticed that salespeople, by and large, don't really like to follow the rules typically. I mean, they're kind of more mavericks, and they really like to think that they're individuals and sort of rugged individualists. And they're highly suspect of people telling them what to do. So because of that, it's especially important for a sales manager, not just a sales manager, but also managers just in general, to first establish trust with their employees. So make those regular deposits in the trust account. So here's our example here, and it's kind of, I think you'll be able to understand this obviously pretty easily. But in your bank account, you have an ATM card, and only you have the PIN number to it, unless you've maybe given it to your wife or your spouse or whoever, to access the account funds. So every week, you make these regular deposits and withdrawals into that account. The base salary deposits go in regularly through maybe automatic deposit, while your bonuses and your commission checks go in periodically as well. But sometimes you make cash withdrawals, you make debit card purchases, you write checks, and you make other kinds of payments. So unless you really enjoy bouncing checks and incurring overdraft fees, you're probably pretty careful to monitor those balances so that you don't bounce those checks and rack up those nasty overdraft fees, because if you do, you're probably going to end up paying the 16.75 interest. So be careful that you make more deposits than you do withdrawals. So think of the trust level that you have with your salespeople in the very same way that you think about the balance that you have in your bank account. And the amount of trust that they have in you is really kind of your beginning balance. And Maybe you're trying to reestablish trust here. Maybe you're trying to build trust because you're brand new. Or maybe you're trying to teach your sales managers to get your salespeople to perform at a higher level. But before you can do anything else, you really do need to establish a level of trust. And we're going to give you a bunch of tactics and techniques in which to do that.